Championship is as real as racing gets. You just don't have to hold it for 75 laps. World Driver Championship, your passport to racing. Only on Nintendo 64 from Midway.
If you love racing, you'll love the American Motorsports Club Sweepstakes. You can win your choice of a pair of Harley-Davidson Fat Boys, a Chevy Tahoe, or a Ford F-150. The winner will be drawn right after the upcoming NASCAR Winston Cup race. And all you have to do is call the toll-free number to qualify.
This is one supercharged sweepstakes, but you have to enter to be in the running to win. So give me a call.
There's no obligation, so call now to enter the American Motorsports Club Sweepstakes.
Sears giant wall-to-wall tire sale. Get incredible deals for whatever you drive. All brands, all sizes, all tires on sale. And with thousands in stock, we've got the right tire for you right now. Sears, your smart stop for tires and batteries.
Property owners, if weeds and brush are taking over your property, at last there is a solution. The amazing DR Field and Brush Mower can reclaim overgrown land with less work than you ever dreamed possible. The secret is that the DR works like a big tractor-mounted brush mower, but in a walk-behind version that's easier to handle and a lot less expensive. So if parts of your land are too overgrown for any ordinary mower, call toll-free for free details about the amazing new DR Field and Brush Mower.
On April 14th, 1944, Bomber Command and the 8th Air Force were placed directly under General Eisenhower's control. He elected to proceed with Zuckerman's plan, known in bomber circles as Zuckerman's Folly.
Bomber Command's precision bombing techniques had improved. The achievement of air superiority had led to a decline in loss rates and had improved conditions for daylight precision attacks. On D-Day, June the 6th, 1944, Allied forces returned to Europe. In the weeks after D-Day, the Allied air forces demonstrated the extent of their crushing air superiority. They flew almost 500,000 sorties. The Luftwaffe was almost totally suppressed. It was confined to isolated attacks that had no measurable effect.
The Allied advance swept the German radar line back. By the end of August 1944, Luftwaffe night fighters had no early warning network. The Allied attack on Germany's fuel supplies took effect. After July, the Luftwaffe's day and night operations were severely curtailed.
Air superiority permitted Allied truck convoys to move in closely packed arrays on European roads. They could be confident that any aircraft that appeared overhead was a friend. Air support parties were assigned to each tank column. Soon every tank column was covered by a flight of 4 fighter bombers as advanced reconnaissance.
In August, the Luftwaffe build-up in France threatened General George Patton's Third Army. It was part of Hitler's last desperate attempt to throw the Allies out of France with a counterattack by German troops and panzers. The German forces were halted by fierce American resistance on the ground and the combined assaults of hundreds of British and American fighter bombers. Their rockets destroyed the German tank and vehicle concentrations.
The German forces were almost encircled in the Falaise-Argentin pocket. They made a densely packed target for the concentration of Allied air power overhead. It was so thick that formations had to wait in line for their turn to dive in and attack. German infantrymen complained that their opposite numbers were unwilling to fight until they'd received overwhelming fighter-bomber support. They were right. The Allies had the power, and they flaunted it. Germans finally abandoned their equipment and fled on foot.
In the meantime, strategic bombing went on day and night. At last, concentration was on the oil industry. The Ploesti oil fields were destroyed. By September 1944, they were occupied.
German production of oil was down to 23% of what it had been only 6 months before. But the Germans had become expert in the reconstitution of the synthetic oil plants and refineries. They eliminated old safety procedures in the interest of turning out product.
The Americans and the British at last combined forces. The 8th and 15th Air Forces hit synthetic oil plants. Bomber Command hammered targets in the Ruhr, where Benzol was produced. In the process, an argument was settled. Precision bombing using the Norden bomb sight could do more damage with 250 tons of bombs than a radar attack with 1,000 tons.
Incredibly, despite the damage, German oil production rose. The Germans could have a destroyed complex working again within a month. By December, the focus of the bombing was shifted from the synthetic oil industry to stopping the German offensive in the Ardennes. But that very offensive was doomed by a shortage of gasoline. Even as all Germany was going up in flames, the German motor vehicle industry reached new peaks of production. But like the aircraft industry, the armored vehicle industry was dispersed. Another path to halting production was to destroy the rail and canal networks that linked subcontractors to the main assembly plants. The strategic bombers took on the rail centers. The tactical fighter bombers, known to the Germans as Jabos, from Jagdbomber, cut the rail lines and attacked trains, canal traffic, and motor transport.
Now you can call for as little as 2.5 cents a minute. That's a weekend plan that works for everyone. He works in Washington. She works in Washington. He's booked all week. She's booked all week. Because there's never enough time during the week, Sprint has the new weekend plan that's just right for people who need all weekend to talk. Call now and switch to Sprint 1000. You'll get 1,000 weekend minutes of calls every month for just $25. That's as little as 2.5 cents a minute. Just switch to Sprint before July 30th and start getting your weekend calls for as little as 2.5 cents a minute. Now getting together all weekend is so simple. From midnight Friday to the late show on Sunday. Who says people in Washington are out of touch? Call 1-877-4-WEEKENDS or visit Sprint.com. Get weekend calls for as little as 2.5 cents a minute.
Here's what's coming up on Speed Vision.
Yet, incredibly, amid the rain of bombs and bad news in 1944, German production rose, and with it, German inventiveness.
The Luftwaffe's fighter arm had seen a vast increase in the numbers of aircraft available to it. The Jägerstab was set up under Albert Speer's Ministry for Armaments and War Production. Under Speer's aegis, monthly fighter production shot up, reaching 3,000 in September 1944. Most of the German fighters were improved models of the aircraft types that had begun the war. A few new models had been introduced. The most important was the Focke-Wulf 190. For a long time, sensible development of aircraft had been held back by the inept leadership of Colonel General Ernst Udet. He had been totally unqualified to lead the technical department of the State Ministry of Aviation. His department produced some terrible planes, but it was capable of producing the most advanced aircraft of the war. The Messerschmitt Me-262 jet fighter, with its swept wings, heavy armament, and 540 miles an hour top speed, was easily the best fighter of the war. It was a beautiful aircraft, but its pilots liked it for more than aesthetic reasons. By the time it began to appear in service in late 1944, the Allies dominated the air. The Me-262 gave Luftwaffe pilots at least a slim chance for survival. About 1,433 Me-262s were delivered to the Luftwaffe, but only about 300 got into operation. The rest were destroyed on the production lines or on their way to the combat units. Production of the 262 was delayed because of the difficulty of producing a satisfactory number of the radical new jet engines.
There's no question that if the utmost priority had been placed on the development of the jet engine in 1939, the 262 could have entered service in mid-1943. If it had, the air war over Europe would have been vastly different. The Allies would not have won air superiority, nor would they have invaded Europe in 1944.
Another German engineering triumph was the Arado AR-234 Blitz. It was the first operational jet bomber and a superb reconnaissance plane. It was almost as fast as the Me-262, and it had a greater range. The most radical German aircraft was the Messerschmitt Me-163 Komet. It was a rocket-powered flying wing interceptor. It flew at 624 miles an hour in 1941. That was such a fantastic feat that any self-respecting Allied spy would have refused to believe it. The liquid rocket motor used extremely volatile fuels. Any mishap, even a bounced landing, could cause an explosion. 300 Kometen were built, but they achieved only 9 kills in combat, including 2 probables. The Luftwaffe maintained its recovery powers to the very end. It could still put on brilliant performances, displaying the old initiative and skills. But the war was lost, and the continuing bravery and elan of the Luftwaffe pilots could do nothing to change things. By March 1945, the collapse of the Luftwaffe left the defense of Germany virtually in the hands of 60 Messerschmitt Me-262s of JG7. By this stage of the war, the range of talent among German jet pilots varied widely. Some were experts with thousands of hours of flying time, others were fresh from flying school. A few were aces, well experienced in the Me-262. A special Me-262 unit of aces, Jagdverband 44, was formed. It got into action quickly and scored some victories. But not even the Me-262 could redress the balance. Time had at last run out for the Luftwaffe.
Has back pain got you bent over? Does your neck feel stiff as a board? Does traveling have you twisted in knots? Then you need Fukuoka 9000, the pocket-sized personal massager. Look, with just a touch, you can see thousands of pulsating waves. When placed on your sore muscles, you'll enjoy soothing vibrations throughout your body. Fukuoka 9000 is smaller than a business card, yet powerful enough to send 9,000 penetrating waves per minute. That's almost twice as much as these big, bulky massagers. Now, with a touch, relieve tension headaches, eye strain, neck and back pain. Fukuoka weighs less than a spoon. It adjusts to fit any size finger, large or small, and travels anywhere, in your pocket, purse, or glove box. Look, a massage feels good. Now add Fukuoka, and it's 9,000 times better.
With Fukuoka, I just touch where the pain is. My head, my neck, my back, and the pain's gone. I just love it.
Fukuoka is ready anywhere, anytime you are. And for even more pleasure, Fukuoka comes with 3 stimulation tips. Each one applies a unique feeling for increased sensations that will have you or a friend totally relaxed. It's like turning 1 massager into 3. And with this easy step-by-step massage guide, you'll maximize the use of your Fukuoka. Hey, don't spend over $200 on an expensive, clumsy massager. Order the Fukuoka 9000 right now for only $19.95. And as a bonus, you'll receive this handy carry pouch to store your Fukuoka in a briefcase or travel bag. Yours free. Try Fukuoka for 30 days. If you're not convinced it's the most compact, powerful massager you've ever used, return it for a full refund. You get it all for only $19.95. Order now.
Credit card customers call 1-800-714-6655 to order Fukuoka 9000 for just $19.95 and receive the bonus carrying case free. Or send check or money order to this address. Ask about the special offer on a second Fukuoka. Fukuoka makes a great gift, so call now. 1-800-714-6655.
The Luftwaffe was defeated because it had not been conceived on a scale grand enough for the gigantic combat in which Hitler embroiled it.
It caught the design tide and had the best aircraft available when the war started. But it missed the production tide by 2 vital years. When aircraft production rose to its peak in 1944, it was too late. The Luftwaffe was also ill-served by its leadership. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring was derelict in his direction of the Luftwaffe after 1939. Colonel General Ernst Udet was incapable of performing the duties assigned to him. Colonel General Hans Jeschonnek was too immature for his responsibilities. With such leaders, even the brilliant Erhard Milch, Adolf Galland, and Wolfram von Richthofen could not prevent the Luftwaffe's defeat. All the heroism of the many aces, all the selfless duty of the mechanics and the factory workers, and all the stoic heroism of the civilian populace were wasted. Dresden, a city of 600,000 people, had been little touched by the war. Its center was a warren of timber houses ready to be burned. Many Dresdeners came to assume that it was Allied policy to spare a city of such immense cultural value. This was naive, to say the least.
With remorseless efficiency, Bomber Command launched 855 planes against Dresden on the night of February the 13th, 1945. The 8th Air Force would attack on the 2 following days with a total of 521 bombers. Massive fires erupted. The German and neutral press protested at the extensive damage and loss of life. Official German police records eventually calculated somewhere between 35,000 and 60,000 killed or missing.
The 8th Air Force was unaware of or insensitive to the brewing controversy. It raided Dresden twice more before the end of the war. It focused the attacks on the railroad marshalling yards, which were unquestionably legitimate military targets.
There was an eruption of criticism from critics of Sir Arthur Harris's area bombing policy. Harris, the scapegoat of choice, was quick to point out that the Joint Chiefs of Staff had designated Dresden as a primary target because it was a key transportation center. The decision to bomb was officially supported by Stalin, Roosevelt, Churchill, and Eisenhower.
It is important to recall the psychology of the time. Germany was a dreaded enemy. Even though Germany lay in ruins, the Fuhrer, Adolf Hitler, commanded the loyalty and respect of his nation and the absolute obedience of his soldiers. No one knew how long the war would go on or how many thousands of people would be killed. Dresden was a military target because it had crucial rail, governmental, and industrial facilities. The Soviet Union wanted it bombed to help the advancement of its armies. Only when Portal and Churchill sensed the public outrage did they attempt to distance themselves from the decision to bomb Dresden. The uproar over Dresden finally convinced Bomber Command that it had run out of targets. Area bombing was formally ended on April 16, 1945. The last major attack by the 8th Air Force occurred on April 25th. It was a raid on airfields, rail targets, and the Skoda armament works in Czechoslovakia. In the days following, leaflet dropping and supply missions were flown. The 8th engaged in evacuating liberated prisoners of war. Then it stood down to prepare itself